We begin with two coaches who get it and the coach who doesn't. The I can't breathe and hands up don't shoot protests continue, still largely at the fringes of sports, still entirely pregame, although I'm thinking that may change as early as this evening. Instead of leaving okay enough alone, the St. Louis Rams are going to reignite the whole hands up thing by having a pregame ceremony in which they will give a donation to a group called the Backstoppers, which does admirable work helping the families of police officers who have fallen in the line of duty around St. Louis. Unfortunately, after another head of another local police union called the Rams players classless and said the donation will be a, quote, good first step to repairing the damage, this will read in many quarters as cultural hush money. And the pregame only element may vanish too. Deshaun Jackson of Washington today says his new cleats have arrived, his new I can't breathe cleats. He may wear them in the next game. Of course, that is against the Giants, so there is a chance nobody will be there nor watching on TV. Meantime, before their game last night against Kansas, the entire Georgetown team donned the shirts, protesting the lack of indictments thus far in the death of Eric Garner in New York. We didn't wear the shirt to say the cops were wrong or the system was wrong, said Josh Smith of the Hoyas. We wore the shirts just to show our condolences to the family. No matter how you look at it, we don't know who's right or wrong, but they still lost somebody. Coach John Thompson III revealed he and the players had talked about it as early as last month. The emotions and feelings in the locker room, he said, are all over the place. It's not necessarily that everyone feels the same way. Emotions from fear to frustration to confusion to anger. And the reasons why every individual wanted to wear it is all over the place too, which is probably pretty consistent with the emotions across the country right now. Even on the opposing bench, Coach Bill Self of Kansas said he thought it was pretty good and showed team solidarity. I don't see anything negative with it at all. So there's Coach Self approving in a kind of hoops nerd way, and Coach Thompson turning into both protest and bonding exercise. On the other hand, there's Coach Dana Altman of Oregon. Sunday night before their home game against Mississippi, during the national anthem, freshman Jordan Bell and junior Dwayne Benjamin made the hands up, don't shoot gesture, which has become associated with the death by police shooting in Missouri of teenager Michael Brown, even though witnesses conflict on whether or not Brown made any such gesture, which by now is truly besides the point. Bell and Benjamin then appeared to frisk one another. Not only has Oregon not permitted either player to speak to the media about the incident, but their coach Altman has now publicly criticized them. I think every player has a right to express their opinion. However, I didn't think that was the time and place for it. On their own as individuals, they have that right as part of our basketball team. When you put the Oregon jersey on, it's a little different. So I think there's a time and place for everything. I don't think that was the appropriate time. Whether you think Thompson and Self are right or Altman is, the rules, the jerseys and warm-ups rules, favor Thompson and Self. The NCAA men's basketball rule on warm-ups, Section 22, Article 2, says only that warm-ups are any pieces of clothing worn by team members that must be removed before they become players, and adds warm-ups are not considered part of the uniform. The end. It is also difficult to argue that anywhere or any event connected to a college is an inappropriate time or place for public protest. We have had such protests in this country since we have had colleges. And if you think this by Georgetown, or the gestures by the two Oregon players, or even the dramatic walkout, drop as if shot, and then lie on the court for a symbolic 4.5 minutes by Ariana Smith of Knox, evidently the first athlete to protest, if you think these somehow rank as big-time American college protests, I'd like to introduce you to 1969. At Cornell, first a cross was burned outside a cooperative home for African-American women students. Then black students took over the student union. Then a frat tried to take the student union back in a fight. Then the black students brought in guns. And then there were the violent protests like Kent State, the ones against the Vietnam War. I get questions daily from people who profess to be in favor of athletes protesting the Garner and or Brown cases, but who wonder where it could all lead and where you should draw the line, and what if athletes decided they also want to protest, I don't know, the price of butter in the dining rooms. I think we can all agree 11 kids in T-shirts and 2 others with their hands up is not going to lead to students burning crosses or taking over student unions or getting killed by the National Guard. And as to the imaginary slippery slope here, a postscript to that terrifying Cornell story. Almost 10 years later to the day of that student union takeover, the main administration building was taken over at Cornell by a small group of African-American students, and the campus braced itself, and we student reporters raced to the scene, and the school president, driving back from a black tie dinner, was so shocked he rear-ended a parked car while going about 5 miles an hour. And then it turned out There were 5 guys in there complaining that they hadn't been given extensions on their tuition, at which point everybody went home. A protest will only go as far as the merits of the complaint will carry it. It seems like protesting people getting shot by police for whatever the reason by wearing T-shirts or making symbolic gestures at ball games seems like that's pretty mild stuff. It's about a notch up from the Great Harvard Butter Rebellion of 1766. If you're worried about this, maybe you want to save that worry until and unless it gets, I don't know, maybe about 10,000% more serious.